You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia, and Tactical Fishing Company.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Alrighty, guys, we are here for the first ever. Hopefully, everyone can hear me okay. Just trying to get all my notes all adjusted to make sure everything is good to go. How's everybody doing this morning? Could somebody just type into chat if they can hear me okay? Just that would be extremely helpful. Before I get started here, I just want to make sure that the audio is good. Make sure the audio is good there. All right. Anybody can type in chat would be awesome. We'll get started. Yep, Matthew Gills. Sweet. All right, cool. So, all right, this is how this is going to work. Basically, this is the first time I'm doing this different kind of style for Patreon members. If you guys didn't read the old message I had up there last week, no worries. We're going to go through it real quick. Basically, I generate a fishing report, basically pretty high level, giving you the conditions of the different bodies of water. And then we're going to basically kind of like talk about it. That's kind of how we're going to be doing this. So the problem with this one, I'm going to go right out on the gate and say it, is the length of time. I generated the report on Friday, the paperback version. And now, if you guys don't know, it is Wednesday. So it's not going to be exactly a tit for tat. This is the beta test of this format. If people are like, this is pretty neat, my hope is I could drop the paper version on like a Thursday or Friday, and then the following day, I would do this video report. That way you have a chance to kind of read through it, and then we can kind of react to it. Or maybe we do a kind of a same day thing. But again, this is just because of how hectic my schedule was. This is kind of how it came out. Because if you guys don't know, I'm not much of a writer, but I am a talker. And there's 1,000 fishing reports from great resources, Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, Woods and Water Magazine. They have a ton of writers that go for it. But something that was really neat that I saw on YouTube is people that do reaction videos. There's different niches and genres that just do reaction style videos. And so my thought is like, well, what if we did that for fishing reports? And I would amalgamate all the fishing reports I can find online and then give them to you, works cited, so you can go give credit to the original creators of it. But we can add my 2 cents to it. And so that's basically this format here, but it's only for Patreon members. And we can also talk about some of the episodes that I have done and coming up, things that I know that happen behind the scenes, juice and stuff like that. So without further ado, that's basically what we're going to be doing with this report. Let me get it up here and share my screen. And so we're going to be going through this, and then I'm just basically going to be adding my 2 cents. And if people have specific questions, I can get those specific questions answered, kind of deal. So this is going to be the river report. I'm probably going to also add the Tidal Potomac River at the end as well, because people wanted a a little bit of an update on that bad boy. And since I have so many friends that fish that bad boy, I can like give you guys more juice on that. All right, so here are the rivers that we're going to be talking about. Upper Potomac, Shenandoah, Susquehanna, New River, and then the Upper James. Upper James is going to be tough. Some of these fisheries are tougher to get more information on, believe it or not, because there's like 7 people that fish them, and there's like a cult blood oath that if anyone talks, they get a bullet in the back of the head. So it's really hard to get people just to even give up high level stuff. The other thing I want to do, and I'm just going to mention this, when I get a job and I can save some money, I really want to create my own app to where I can get all of the river flow gauges, all that information onto one app that you can just pull up immediately, and it kind of like refreshes every like 10 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever. I think that would be really cool for Patreon supporters. I got to look at the cost or something, but taking all that data and amalgamating it onto a quick app to where you have it for tidal charts. Why can't you have it for flow rates on all these like niche little rivers? And having it that you could put it on your boat and get updated information, I think that'd be pretty cool. I don't know the cost of that crap, but anyway, that's just for me doing all this stuff. So, and then if you guys want to, you can follow along. That's why I have the print out there so you guys can follow along with this thing as we get into it here. The first thing that should be on the docket would be, there we go, the Upper Potomac. So really starting at Riley's Lock and Edwards Ferry, and I will pull that up for you guys here because this is what's so cool about doing it in this format, man. I can actually do the old, I can actually use Google Maps here, which will be fun. All right, there we go. Boop, boop, bang, bang, boom. There you go. Oh, wait, it's not showing. Oh, I'm not showing my whole screen. That's why. See, this is why we do the beta test of this format. And that's what this is. There we go. And oh, the entire screen. That was my problem. I wasn't sharing the entire screen. There we go. Boomer moment. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so here we go. All right, so this is the Riley's Lock area, Edwards Ferry. Oh, I almost had it right there. There we go. So Edwards Ferry, Riley's Lock down here. It is below Leesburg, Virginia. There's a couple of really cool places that you can actually launch from. You can go down here. This is Goose Creek, good for largemouth. It is hit or miss when it comes for smallmouth, depending on the time of year. And then you have Algonquian Park down this way. That is really the big launch, which you have to be worried about for this area. Let me pull up the radar here. Right here. This area through here can really get smoked with props and kayaks in shallow water conditions. The biggest thing is with the flow rate right now, the turbidity is up, the flow rate and is up a lot. One thing I like about Google Maps of doing it this way is you can just literally see that the flow rate is up a lot. And then what is nice, if you guys are on the Upper Potomac River, if you go to the fishtag.org, they actually have really good updated information about the turbidity levels and the flow rate, which is kind of wish I could just have this app for basically everything as well. So, hey, Roy, so basically we're starting with the Upper Potomac on the document. We're starting just at the top. We're going to be working our way down through that. Let me get to Edwards Ferry. And there we go. There, Little Falls, Point of Rocks. There you go. Yeah. And you can see with all of the water that we're getting here, yeah, it's the flow is a going. Wow. And it's actually kind of coming down a lot since last week when we did the report. But the thing about that following water is, you know, where those fish are going to be pulling back through it, which would be pretty crazy. Anyway, so that's that. All right. And let's get into the Point of Rocks area. Flow continues to stabilize through the stretch. The gauge measures at 3.28 and was falling on June 5th, which, you know, coincidentally comes with what we're seeing here with that falling water. The biggest thing, depending on the water clarity, when you get that chalkiness, the baits you're going to be throwing, and it's going to be on like all the rivers. This is why I didn't want to kind of like do baits as much, is it's choose your own adventure. Chatterbaits are going to be big. Spinner baits, honestly, for a lot of these smallmouth recently, I've had a lot of luck throwing spinner baits. I throw the Mega Bass VL1, I think. Do I have one here? I think I have one here. It's in the boat. But yeah, spinnerbait, chatterbait, choose your own adventure there with that muddier water. They're going to be wanting to chew. I personally like to throw that on braided line because I can go with a 8 to 10 gear ratio reel and a kayak, and you basically can just horse them in like that. But that really is from the Point of Rocks to Harper's Ferry area. The biggest thing you have to understand about the Point of Rocks area down to Harper's Ferry, let me pull this up here and kind of go through it right here. Boom. So this is the Point of Rocks to, there we go, Harper's Ferry, Point of Rocks. This is where a lot of the tournaments are won, is really from Point of Rocks to Harper's Ferry, right through this area here. It is really hard to get a jet boat up there unless the flow rate is just right. A lot of rocks that are protruding through the water, really easy meat and potatoes places to fish visually to actually hit. The flow rate though has to be over 3, I believe is what guys have told me in the past, for you to be able to operate a jet boat up through there. But when you have, you know, this higher water like you had back in June 3rd, that's pretty easy for you to navigate. The flow's up. You're not going to be usually crawling crap. It's going to be really power fishing central all the way through there. As that thing really does start to level out, though, you get down towards like 2 or lower. And honestly, this is also me judging it. If you are a jet boat guy that has a lot of confidence in moving their jet boat, maybe you could do with a little less flow rate. But in general, I would say at least over 3 if you're brand new. You want to make sure all those rocks are covered before you go on up there. Now, if you just are a little bit new to it, if you go from Point of Rocks down towards, where is the Monocacy? Point of Rocks, the Monocacy, Point of Rocks all the way to White's Ferry, that's pretty safe running. You can run that at 2 without any problem. But again, when that flow rate goes up like that, you're going to be able to power fish, hit anything you can, wood, rock, meat and potatoes type of stuff there. I prefer a spinnerbait or a chatterbait, though some people like doing the old crankbait. And if you're going to do a crankbait, I would say go chartreuse with that bad boy there. And then if you go all the way up, so Shepherdstown to Williamsport, this is kind of my area. And I'll pull that back up on the map here. So this is Shepherdstown. This is split between Maryland and West Virginia. And this goes all the way up to Falling Waters right here. We can get into that. The Hancock gauge measured at 4.55 feet and continued falling through the morning. Again, we dealt with high water conditions and the rain has slowly started to drain out of the system. So you're going to have higher water farther up you go, lower water the farther down you go. And then what will end up happening is, and Chris Gorsuch actually talked about this a while back. I need to get him back on the show, that you can chase the water. So right now, back last Friday, the gauge was at 4.55 feet up at Hancock, let's say. Well, in 3, 4, 5 days, what will end up happening is this gauge will go down, but then the gauge downriver will go up. And this is what's so important about checking those gauges, because you can either catch water coming up, rising water, or you can catch water going down, depending on where the rain was heaviest. So watching these gauges are highly important for that. And then if you guys didn't know, let me pull this up here. Turbidity, here we go. Turbidity basically just means it's going to really do with water clarity. Just in a nutshell, the higher the turbidity, the more chalkiness, the more mud that's going to be in the water. The lower the turbidity, the closer you get to gin clear. And that's a big thing when it comes to, you want that little bit of chalk, that little bit of color in the water. Once that goes from gin clear to a little bit of color in the water, that to me is when the fish really start chewing on river systems. If it gets chocolate milk, there are some people that are very good at catching them in that dirtier water. But what I've noticed when I've fished tournaments while the water was rising is when it goes from gin clear water just to that tint of color to it, all of a sudden those fish just start chewing. It's so crazy how that happens. So just kind of keep that in mind there when you're reading the chart. But anyway, back to the old thing. As water levels stabilize, fish are becoming increasingly predictable. Current breaks, deeper bank seams, rock shelves continue the majority of the catches. This is going to be, and this is the same thing with doing these reports. And that's kind of why I wanted to give it a very high level, is because a lot of this is the same information for everywhere, anywhere you kind of go. And the biggest thing about the Williamsport to Hancock area, because I mean, that's just such a big area. That's getting into the old Big Slack. If you guys don't know, Williamsport right here has a dam. There is a dam, a lowhead dam right here below Williamsport. And then you have the Conacajig Creek that comes up in here. Conacajig Creek in the springtime and the fall is absolutely money. And it can actually be good in extremely hot conditions. In extremely hot conditions, those fish are going to go to the cooler water that the creeks provide. This area here is hit or miss, I think, comparatively. This is in between Forelocks and Big Slack. And then as one of our Patreon members kind of said, this will be 5 seconds to get through this, but Big Slack, let me see that. There we go. So here's Big Slack Reservoir. This is one of the biggest impoundments in Western Maryland that you can run a bass boat. The fishing has just been crap. It just has. You're going to need scope. I think, honestly, I think all the blowout rain we had last year probably pushed all the fish out of it. It's just not fishing really good right now. And it's going to be getting a lot of pressure from all the tournaments. If that flow rate stabilizes there, I think the live scope will play. Last year, there was no grass at all. And so the tournaments were being won as shallow as humanly possible. The farther up you could get your boat into just no water at all, that's where they were. And what was very interesting was with a lot of the tournaments up there at Big Slack was the current level you know, the current was pumping last year. And so it was one of those classic patterns of anywhere that had a seam, there was probably a fish. And you could get away throwing heavier baits. So my Ranger boat couldn't get as far up as the jet boats. I tried. I was bumping prop to get as far up as I could. And what was fascinating is the current was ripping so bad that even with a 36-volt trolling motor, I could barely go upstream. I'd have to use the big motor to push me up, and then the trolling motor keep me stationary. But any seam could have 2 or 3 fish, and you'd have to use. I was using a Hellgrammite or a tiny jig, 3/8 ounce to 3/8 ounce, sometimes maybe a half ounce. I'd have a half ounce available if needed, just to keep it in the seam a little bit longer. And it was crazy how it could be a little concrete pylon, you know, smaller than my head, but it made a beautiful seam. And you throw your jigger back up in there, wham, and you'd get them. And that's the power of high water, high turbulence, high flow rate, is those fish get really pinned to where they don't want to fight the current. And it makes it a lot easier to also read seams as well. And wood will also start playing, you know, in shallow water conditions. And this depends because everything varies. Wood will play more because wood on the banks creates these cover breaks. If you have GPS coordinates on big ass boulders that are submerged, they can work extremely well too. But those fish will also just follow the moving water. And as that water rises, they'll occupy that new stuff because that's where the bait is. That's where the minnows and stuff are going to go as well. So that is basically the Upper Potomac. Now, Shenandoah River. All right, the Strasburg gauge measured 2.29 feet and continued to fall throughout June 5th. Post-rain smallmouth bass are holding along the shoreline. I mean, that's why I said, like, this is the same thing for anything like that. I wanted to add fly anglers, fly fishermen, but in super high water conditions, I don't know how the hell you're going to do that. The North Fork is very interesting because it is basically, if you guys don't know, and you guys have any questions for me, absolutely. I just ramble like a complete lunatic here. Let me pull this up here on the old gauge. All right, Harper's Ferry. Let's go all the way up here. There we go. Cool. So here we go. Riverton area, Front Royal is kind of where they merge. This is the North Fork. Let me see if I can get this a little bit bigger for you guys. I'm looking on my tiny. I have like a big monitor, and so it looks great for me. But I then look back at the little monitor, and it looks like crap. But anyway, so the North Fork is basically a glorified creek. There are tons of access points on the North Fork, and this is where high water conditions are important because there are some places that you just can't access without high water. And so if you guys have known following me with the fishing tournaments I did, the Shenandoah River tournament, it was tough. It was really brutal with how shallow the conditions were. Let me pull this one out of here because that is the Potomac River. But anyway, so getting back to the gauges here, we had 2.29 feet, and this kind of shows you the size and the amount of water. That's at 2.29 feet last Friday and falling. Over here, we had 4.87 feet on the Upper Potomac, and it just kind of shows you the volume of water and the size of the fishery that you're kind of dealing with there, which I think is kind of cool. So when this thing will easily be down to like literally ankle deep water, this is the type of flow rate you can easily get a kayak through or a canoe. It's a lot easier to do that. So on some place like this, the North Fork, if you're going to plan a trip, looking for those higher water events is not a bad idea. It'll make it way more accessible for you. And then also just using Google Earth, like updated Google Earth maps, things like that. You can also kind of check the way it looks when it's at high water events and can kind of give you a feeling of where you should be hitting as well. Okay, so that is the North Fork. Let's see, and we got Steve Allis. Hi, boss man. And Steve, if you want to, you can scoot forward on YouTube to where I am now. We are now on the South Fork. The South Fork remains one of the strongest fisheries in the region, 100%. I'll be talking about that later. Gauges at both Luray and Front Royal showed falling water levels similar to that. And you know what? I'm going to try to get these up here. I'm going to get this here. Generate updated river conditions. For of the Shenandoah River. Perfect. All right. 5 seconds, my good peoples. 5 seconds. And this is the one thing where it's like, this helps real quick, is having this information right here to hit for you guys. All right, cool. I'm letting that cook. So I'm going to get some updated stuff here. All right, so the South Fork is absolutely on fire. If you've talked to Hallecker, I had him on the show last year doing a full biology report. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be rotating. Those river reports are going to happen every other year. I'm going to try to get Hallecker on the show for about 20 to 30 minutes just to do kind of a quick little sit rep on everything. But basically, that's kind of what we're going to be going with right now. They just want to do it so it doesn't keep everything from going stale. Here we go. And here's some more updated stuff. So, all right. He says we can hear it perfect. Good morning. Can hear you perfectly. Okay, cool beans. So, and actually, you know what? Pull up the chat there. That way everyone can see it. Anyway, so here we go. Here's some updated stuff from the South Fork. And this is from today, June 10th. All right, South Fork located near Luray, we got 2.11 feet. South Fork near Front Royal, we got 1 point. This is what I'm talking about. This is this is kayaking, man. You're not going to be able to get a jet boat when you're dealing with 1 foot. And I'm pretty sure if I did the same thing for the North Fork of the river, and the North Fork is good, but it's just a glorified trout stream. It's really, really frustrating. You're just not going to be able to get a jet boat up in there. But the South Fork, it's just riffles. It's seams and riffles, unlike the Upper Potomac, where you're dealing with, especially near Harper's Ferry, where you're dealing with these big ass boulders that are out of the water, very easy targets to hit. The Shenandoah, especially the South Fork, what you're dealing with is these huge rock seams that just cut straight across. And I used to have a brilliant photo of this. Let me see if I can find it, of what we're talking about here. It is really, let me see if I can find it. It is really, really cool. It's an old photo. Let me see if I can find Shenandoah River image. Pull this thing up for you guys. Kind of give you a shot. Shenandoah River. Let's go. Yeah, South Fork. Image. I'm not sure if I can get it here. There's this one photo that I had for an old episode, like old, that like literally encapsulated a riffle system. That one might be it. We might be going back to that one if I can't find this, because I don't want to waste too much time. This is supposed to be a live stream, not a 9-hour session, to be fair. Where'd that sucker go? All right, that one's it. All right. That's actually pretty good. I might do it. All right, here we go. Oh, you're going to be a little jerk. All right, let me just screen grab it. Cool. So anyway, you see here, you see how you have these rocks like this? They're not big boulders that are just stuck out of the water. It's a nice little seam that comes across. What you're fishing on the Shenandoah River, the South Fork, is pretty much these seams. It's just a bunch of rock that cuts straight a freaking across the river. You can barely see them. And when you get that flow of 1.7, which it is, you can barely drag a kayak across. And it's frustrating. But this is also a good thing about the Shenandoah, I think, is because the water level, when it gets like this, and this is normal, like the South Fork is hard to get a jet boat through unless the conditions are absolutely perfect. But it protects it. It's hard to overfish that sucker because you just can't get anything up in there. But anyway, you're going to get these seams that are coming across like this. And so in between each of these seams that you're seeing right here, like between this whitewater and this whitewater, it'll drop down to about 3 or 4 feet. So even during that kayak tournament I was in, or when I fun fish, when it's super shallow, it'll still get up to your waist or your belly button. Even in the shallowest conditions, but then it hops straight back up to the next rock ledge and it goes right back down. And so what you're trying to do is you want to position if you're coming upstream, the one way you do it super easy, you just cast up, work your baits through there. But if you're floating, you want to park on the corners and then work that the best you can. And then Hellgrammite, for some reason, I do not know why, but the Hellgrammite on the stupid Shenandoah River is just deadly. I don't know why it doesn't. It works okay on other bodies of water, but the Hellgrammite, for some freaking reason, just kills it on the Shenandoah specifically. Tiny tubes work. Soft plastic flukes. If you know the episode I did with Dyke, flukes work great, and the screw lock head is brilliant. I should have thrown way more of those. I don't know why I didn't throw more on the Shenandoah River, but it does work. And then of course you can do topwater. I didn't have a lot of success with topwater. I know a couple of guys around me were throwing buzz baits and whopper ploppers, and they killed it. They did great, especially in those super shallow water conditions, as like the Shenandoah will have. That whopper plopper, the acoustics of that bait is probably about an inch over their head, 2 inches over their head. This water gets stupid shallow on rivers. And that's why topwater is so efficient, is they're reacting to get it out of there. They're hating it. They're not trying to kill it necessarily to eat it, just to kill it to get away from them, because I think it's either hurting their lateral lines, hurting their ears, or something like that. So it's very much a reaction bite to that. And that's where the whopper plopper is so effective, is you can have treble hooks. And so even though they might push it out of the way, you'll get a hook in them. The buzzbait is great too, don't get me wrong, but there's something about having those treble hooks available that is absolute freaking money for that. So the shallower the water gets on all these river systems, as we go through all of the rivers, the baits that you can use kind of shrink down. It's going to be topwater. It's going to be soft plastic flukes. It's going to be soft baits, because there's just not much else you can do. So just kind of keep that in mind as that water level goes down as we get into the shallower time of year. So anyway, that is the South Fork, and that is the North Fork. Let's go to the main stem. Okay, main stem of the Shenandoah River. So basically, you have the South Fork here. It is from really Luray all the way to Front Royal, a massive section of river, tons of these big S turns, deeper creeks, followed by riffles. Love this river so much. It's a lot of fun. Go explore the whole river. And again, guys, if you have any questions for me here, just pop it in chat, and I'll try to answer it. I want to feel like I'm not just talking like a lunatic, even though I guess that's what you guys want. So anyway, Millville. We get into the Millville part of the fishing report here. You have Riverton right here. There's a big old dam right here, so don't yeet past that. You can launch at the golf course, but you can also launch right here at the Riverton boat landing. As you can tell, when it gets shallow, pointing, you can't really do anything. You can't really get a boat in there. It's kind of it's a little bit frustrating. But you can also launch at the golf course, which is, where's the golf course? Here it is, the Front Royal Golf Course down below 66. So main stem is very fascinating. There's a couple of really good floats that you can do. You got Morgan Ford you can dump in. It's really, you can go upstream, but be mindful, this bridge is insanely low on Morgan Ford. I know, there you go. That's a pretty good image right there to show it. It's a pretty low way to get into that bad boy right there. But you can do it. You can do it. And then you can float from Morgan Ford all the way down to, where is it? Boop, 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 boop. There it is. Farmview, which is a nice little float. Now, this part of the river, you're not going to get as many of these seams like this. So you see how this comes right across? This is very classic on the South Fork. You're not going to get as much of that. You're going to get more boulders, but you're going to be fishing more of submerged rock, and then you're going to be fishing stuff that are along the side of the river. So keep that in mind. The amount of smallmouth per area on the main stem is less, but there are some really big monster fish there. So just keep that in mind. The South Fork right now is stupid. It's hard. The main stem looks worse fishing wise because the South Fork is so good right now, if that makes sense. There's just so many fish in the South Fork right now. And so I think it kind of makes people think like, okay, so the main stem's fishing bad. It's like, no, it's still a good baseball player. It's just, it's compared against a Hall of Famer right now. So that is a great float. You can also go from Farmview boat ramp all the way to Route 50, and then you can go Route 50. This is the big dog. You go Route 50 all the way to 7 or to the Watermelon Park, and you can even do Locke's boat landing. There's a couple of creek entrances as well, and then you get a few more of these classic riffle systems right through here that you really see a lot on the South Fork as well. Again, if you get that chalky water conditions, a swim jig will work too. Chatterbait, spinnerbait have been absolute money. And just pick your poison, whether you want to do a tiny tube, a Ned rig or a Helgramite. A Helgramite I just feel like you have to have on. It just kind of works extremely well there. So that is the Shenandoah fishing report. Kind of with that. So let's go to the Susquehanna. Let me check on something here while I make sure today's episode is uploading. Yeah, because like, you know, if you guys don't know, I have to do a lot of things. I wear many hats here at this enterprise. And I want to make sure that I actually got today's episode. And today's episode is the Chesapeake Bay with Duke. Duke Fishing. He is one of the big dogs when it comes to the upper Chesapeake Bay, and that is dropping today. So that's going to be that's going to be a fun episode. I think you guys are going to like that. Let's see. Perfect. Let me get that up there. Sorry, guys. This will be cut out of the re-upload. So don't worry about that. Perfect. All right, sweet. Perfect. All right, cool. So let us get into the Susquehanna area. Let's see. Can we see it? Okay, cool. So Susquehanna River Fishing Report. The Salisbury gauge registered at 8.11 feet and 13,000 cubic feet per second. Again, this is back on Friday. Don't worry. The next one we do, it'll be more, kind of straightforward with all that. So don't worry about that. But summer bass have transitioned to classic river structure. Despite improving conditions, anglers should remain cautious when wading due to their being powerful. Always got to make sure about that because that area is absolutely. I think some of these rivers can be absolutely deceptive. All right, let's go to stop it. Sunbury, perfect. All right, get out of here. All right, so. This is the splits area of the Susquehanna and the west branch of the Susquehanna right through here. And this was so hard for me is like figuring out how far up I should do the fishing report for the Susquehanna because the river system is it's so big, dude. It's crazy how big this river is. I don't think we can really appreciate when you say the and this is what's so interesting when you get into the weeds of the culture and stuff like. And I had this conversation actually with Duke. I think it was before or after. I honestly don't remember. When it came to Pennsylvania fishing culture and bass fishing, things like that. And what's crazy is you don't think of big bass boat tournaments on the Pennsylvania. And I think it's because culturally the Susquehanna just eats up a lot of the real estate. Like if you live in Pennsylvania, you're going to want a jet boat or a kayak because the Susquehanna is it's pretty much what represents Pennsylvania fishing culture, in my opinion. So biggest thing that I've been hearing from guys when it comes to this stretch of the river is it really does come down to the flow rate. A lot of these places, you're going to be dealing with submerged boulders if you're talking about the main breadth of it. And this is where, if you're going to be fishing this area, let's just say straight down the gut of it, being able to pinpoint and locate different rocks and boulders and waypoint them is so important compared to the Potomac River. The Potomac River might have one or two really good spots. The Shenandoah might have like one or two spots. They're very, very identifiable in low water conditions. And when that swells up, it's easy to find them again because it's such a small area to kind of work with. Susquehanna is completely different. You're talking about maybe a mile or 2 miles across. And so this is where I think having a GPS unit or for you to be able to triangulate that if you're in a kayak or a boat that doesn't have that is insanely important. So you can go back to it when those water conditions get up a little bit. And this comes back to just reading the water really good. I think that's just highly, highly important. Mouth of creeks are going to be getting better here. Again, tail race fishing. We know that whole hullabaloo. There's a reason that's effective like that. But the backs of islands are going to be huge this time of year. Go check out all the backs of the islands that you can, especially as that water gets up, because you're going to create really good seams, those big time current seams. And one thing that's been interesting with the Susquehanna from just people being on the show is it's the water disparity in temperature. That is huge on the Susquehanna River. It really is, whether it's shade or it's one of the creeks that are coming in. Having that temperature difference as we get into June and July is insanely important for the Susquehanna River system. So keep that in mind. The Harrisonburg gauge, as you can tell, the Harrisonburg gauge is at 4.15 feet, 18,000 cubic feet per second. Again, the farther down you go, we talked about that with the Potomac River, how that water adjusts from high to low. If the rain is upstream, the first couple of days, the upstream gauges are really going to swell, but then as that water pushes down the system, the gauges up there are going to go down and the water downstream is going to swell up. And so just like tidal fishing, you can kind of catch a rising gauge or a falling gauge, depending on what you like to fish, honestly. Same on the James, a little pen rock, big rocks and seams in the middle of the river. Yeah. And this is something too, like I know more guys are getting into jet boats. Jet boats can be dangerous. So please, practice. This is the same thing I say if you're a tidal water angler. If you want to go into a creek, and this is kind of reverse knowledge here, so hear me out. If you want to learn a tidal system, go at the absolute lowest tide. I don't know why I said reverse. Sorry, I didn't take my medication yet. But if you want to learn tidal water, go at absolute low tide with your Lowrance, Humminbird, whatever, and you'll know where the channel is, and you mark the shit out of that. To know, like this is where I can navigate. Same thing, Susquehanna, Upper Potomac, Shenandoah. Go out there at the absolute worst time and just gauge where the deeper water is. If you go out there during a blowout river conditions on a jet boat, yeah, you can pretty much run the whole damn river, but you're not going to have that information set up. And just through time, you'll figure out those areas. And on the flip side, on low water condition, mark the biggest rocks you can find. And that'll help you because then you can go back there and fish them on higher water. And this is where like the river rats have so much great knowledge, is they can have all that stuff memorized or waypointed. And on the Susquehanna, that's a huge advantage because there's just so much damn water to go through versus the James, the new places like that. So keep that in mind. And then here we go. This is one of the reports here. River Redemption reports improving smallmouth activity as the water temperature rises. Fish are holding around rock ledges, islands, current seams. This is the meat and potatoes stuff. The soft plastic jerk bait, guys, we're not getting enough love on. I know tubes are important, but I really challenge everybody to go out there and try what Nathan was doing up like with a nose hooked fluke. I really think it's a bait that I need to get back into my arsenal again, because again, if we get drought conditions on the Susky like we have everywhere else throughout the summertime, that soft fluke will play extremely well because it's all you can really throw. That is a subsurface bait. So try to keep that in mind. I'm not against throwing crankbaits. I'm not, and this is what River Redemption kind of said on their report. So again, that's linked in the works cited page of where I got this. But the thing with the crankbait is you're gonna be smoking the bill. The bill is gonna get destroyed. And I think a lot of times you can get away with better baits as the weather warms up. I think in colder conditions, like, so example, when I was fishing with Jeff Little, during the day, there was a time where they didn't want to rise up to get a jerkbait earlier. And again, this was like mid-March. They didn't want to rise up off the bottom and get a jerkbait. But then if you beat them over the head with a crankbait, they would react to it. So that's kind of a choose your own adventure. In the moment, you need to use your angling gut decisions to make those adjustments to, like, do they want the crankbait that will dig down and get to where they are, or will they rise up for a bait? That is on you. And this is the thing, again, when I get back with fishing reports where they say throw a worm on a stump, I don't want to make it too precise like that. You need to be able to kind of use that deductive reasoning in the moment, kind of figure that stuff out there. All right. Next thing here. Fish Talk Magazine reports improving clarity and falling water levels throughout the lower river. Smallmouth bass above the Conowingo Dam are actively feeding. Again, as you can tell here, it's through all kind of the same baits. Throughout the Susquehanna Flats, bass continue to utilize the emerging grass beds, and that kind of gets more into the tidal portion of it there, which we'll save that for the tidal river kind of thing of the show as well. So that part of it right there. Yeah, spy bait is good in between. Yeah, you can use a spy bait. And I also like to use a spy bait also in the wintertime for these fish when you get those deep, cool, clear, when you get those deep, clear water. I've used a spy bait and caught them. And they make shallow versions of a spy bait now, or ones that don't weigh as much. So a spy bait is a really, really, really good tool. All right, let's get down to the Harrisonburg area. All right. So biggest thing when you're fishing the Susquehanna compared to the Potomac or the Shenandoah or the James is because there's so much water, you have to adopt a sense of urgency, generally speaking, especially from like June through August. Move, 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 move. There is so much water and so many fish in there. You got to constantly move to kind of find them. Jeff Little talked about this a lot, where those fish will just bounce. They will pick a couple of areas. And so example is, you might have a couple of big smallmouth, and they'll start here and they'll work across, and they'll just bounce between different ambush points on the river. They migrate a lot, especially, I mean, the Potomac River, because fishtag.org, they talk about this. This fish move up and down the river system. I don't think the Susquehanna fish necessarily do that as much when it comes to going up and down, but I think they move left to right a lot. The other bait that I'll talk about is an underspin. I think it's Deep Creek tackle. Deep Creek tackle makes a micro underspin that's super light. Sometimes when those fish get on those tiny ass minnows, not necessarily the Susquehanna, though they would bite it there, but the Upper Potomac, Shenandoah, and the James and the New, when they get on those tiny minnows, a micro underspin is deadly. And you can tie that onto a spinning rod setup, and you can just bomb cast that son of a bitch. You can go with a weedless one, and you can go with one with the hook out. It just, again, choose your own adventure on that, depending on what you want to do. The one with the exposed hook can be frustrating because you'll get snagged sometimes, but the hookup ratio is way better. And you can use a 1 inch fluke style like crappie bait. And I'm telling you, when they're dialed into those little minnows, it is wild how that little underspin will just absolutely go crazy on them. So again, all these islands here, you just want to be adopting a sense of urgency and moving through. There are so many key areas to hit. Making long casts is your friend. The baits, and a couple of baits that really come into play for the Susquehanna. Jake Harshman has talked about this. A fluke, a straight thread through fluke with that core tackle, cast it out and just reel it back as fast as possible is absolutely deadly. The other bait that's big is a glide bait. Certain times of year, they'll absolutely freaking kill that as well. The Nolan brothers won on a little bug, that spider bug. That was in extremely, extremely hot, shallow conditions. And the reason that worked, again, is they got hooked onto that bug hatch, because smallmouth, unlike largemouth, will eat, elephants will eat peanuts. Smallmouth are that way. They're like a big 6-pound smallmouth will eat a tiny ass bait, more so than I think on a more regular basis than a largemouth will, if that makes sense. So keeping that in the back of your head, really check the rocks on all these river systems. Is there a mayfly hatch? Is there a larvae hatch? Is there a mad toms? Little things like that, cicadas. When those bites go down, man, they'll get on it. Another juicy thing for the Upper Potomac, which I've heard works on the Upper James, a black Ned rig. Like example is, I've talked about this ad nauseum on the show, a tiny ass micro TRD black Ned rig in gin clear water kills them. No idea why. It has to be that it just matches something that's actually coming out or molting in the summertime. But black in the summertime, for some reason, it just kills it. And that micro size, it just gets bites when nothing else will. Those tiny baits are great. You just need to have the right setup. You're going to want a 7-foot medium light rod, as light as possible. There goes Matthew Gills. Yeah, this is just stuff that I know. You want a medium light rod, 7 feet, 8 feet, whatever. There's this one guy, I don't know his name. I don't want to dox him because I'm giving more information to you guys since you're Patreon members. But he ordered it was a salmon rod. I shit you not. I think it was a St. Croix. It was like it was a salmon rod or a trout rod, but it was 8 feet long, medium light. And it's so he could cast these little ass, tiny tubes and stuff, but he could bomb cast those sons of bitches. And it's brilliant. And that's when I did well in the Thursday Nighters up at Big Slack 2 years ago, when that bite was on. That's what I did. Now, I didn't get an 8-foot rod. I just wasn't going to special order that. But having that medium light or light action rod helps you get the distance on those micro baits. And you can feel them and you can move them up over rocks. But it was just so fascinating to me that when they are wired onto that, they eat it. You need to make sure that you have a sticky, sharp hook, by the way, because the medium light rod, the biggest reason you're going to do that is for castability and feel. So when you pull that little bait on that medium light rod, you're going to feel the bite a lot easier. If you had a medium heavy rod with that super light bait, you're going to miss the bite. And when you do action to it, you're going to put too much action into it. And so I could go down the rabbit hole with ADHD when it comes to all that stuff. But anywho, so that is that tirade right there. You guys, again, have any questions about this, kind of let me know. And this will be re-uploaded. So Susquehanna River, that's kind of the Susquehanna River Fishing Report there with Fish Talk Magazine. Please email me any adjustments you want me to make to this going forward. We're just going to be beta testing this to make it better, and better. This kind of fishing, this in-depth fishing report for how everything is fishing right now. Okay, we're going to go. The New River is next, and then we'll go to the James. Womp womp. Get out of there. There we go. I just lost it. Find the Smith. Go down 81. There we go. Sorry. All right, guys. The New River, the land, the Jurassic Park, the time forgot. I got to get Ethan Stone. There's a couple of guys. I'm trying to get Jordan back on the phone as well. He is the guy that won the Kayak Adventure Series. I'm trying to get him on, and there was another guy that actually won a New River tournament as well. I'm trying to get them both on the show. But anyway, so, and then I gotta get Ethan Stone back on the show too. Flows remain relatively low and clear, creating technical fishing conditions. Smallmouth baths are utilizing deep pool shade lines, current seams, and ledges. Finesse presentations are important. Guys, this place is stupid low. Let's go to Ethan Stone. Let's go to Instagram. I saw some guys that were fishing the Kayak Adventure Series. The water was preposterously low, man. Like it was really low. There it is. Let me see. Sorry about that, guys. I know, Barky Dog. I cannot find. I don't want to dox people. Finn. I think Finn went there. Yeah, here it is. Hey, Finn, you're famous. So this is Finn went there. What was this? This was back in May 18, but you can just tell like this is absurdly low water conditions. Which is, you're just going to be getting this everywhere right now when you get the flow rates the way they are. Let me generate a new one too for that. 5 second generate new river conditions for that. Like that's just stupid low. That really is. But anyway, so Claytor Lake. Let me get back to here. Five seconds. In real time, I'm trying to get those river conditions. But anyway, so New River is quite interesting. If you guys haven't fished that, please go on down there. Go check out Ethan. This river actually flows from south to north. So the headwaters are actually down near North Carolina, and it trickles all the way down into Claytor Lake, and then it dumps out here. And so this is the section right here I believe people think of when they think of Claytor Lake, going down this way. Let me try to find Glee's County. There we go. Perfect. And so what's interesting about this is you're going to get cool water from the dam, but also it, generally speaking, is going to be steadier conditions. Let me pull this up here. Boop, 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 boop. Boom. All right. So here's some more updated water conditions for the New River. So in the Ralford, Virginia area, New River, we have a flow rate of 1,030 SFS, which is the flow rate. Water level is 1.8. In the tail race down below there, we got 861 SFS. Tail water level is at 1,230 feet elevation. And in Gills County, we got Gills County. Why did I say Gills County? In Gills County, we have 2.78 feet. Absolutely insane. Biggest thing is there's just not a lot of reading information for that area. I really wish there were. But getting back into the fishing report, where'd it go? Mm-hmm. 5 seconds. Don't shave that. There we go. Ah! There we go. New river, perfect. All right, cool. Current levels provide excellent floating opportunities for experienced angler. Smallmouth bass are positioned around shoals, rocks, etc., etc. Biggest thing with that is the same kind of conditions. This is kind of like where I said, like with these reports, it's going to be a little bit, I don't want to say vague, but you get kind of my point. Let me get back here to the conditions. 5 seconds. There we go. These conditions again. New River is running low overall through the Radford and Gills County. That usually means clearer water, more exposed rock. We all know this. Smallmouth lean towards the tinier baits. The biggest thing looking at that map when you're dealing with these smaller conditions is being able to actually move around. It shrinks the area there could be in, and top water again will be playing. I don't know how much I'm going to be beating this over the head. And also being stealthy. You know, if you're in a canoe or kayak, you're going to be banging into shit that's going to spook them. Long casts are your friend in clear, shallow water. Long casts are your friend. Topwater baits, tiny finesse topwater baits can also play. And this is again why I hate giving bait recommendations on fishing reports, because it just, I've talked to enough people, like, it freaking depends. You need to have a little bit of everything. Have a bigger topwater, have a tiny topwater. The torpedo, niche things, if you want to get into niches, like Ethan Stone has talked about the tiny torpedo absolutely being a killer on the New River. Go give that a try. Get two sizes, get a bigger one and get a tinier one, and kind of mix and mash. The BFS baits that Megabass has, especially the topwaters, have those available, and really try to gauge what the smallmouth are eating at the time. So example is, for the New River, crayfish are a huge component, but Upper Potomac, they might be eating a lot of bluegill. Try to kind of figure that out, because that kind of dictates those baits. If you have a bluegill oriented fish, a swim bait, a swim jig works really well. But if they're keyed in tiny ass minnows, those BFS baits are going to be better as well. So that's where I'm saying, like, have a little bit of everything in the boat, and you're going to be good for success when it comes to that. The hotter the water gets, the more you need to look for shade and cool. Shallow water equals shade and inflowing water. That's why so many of these river tournaments are won in creeks, or the mouth of creeks, in the spawn time and in the summertime. It's deadly effective. And those fish will also get into some shallow ass water as well. You will find them just stacked up in riffles, as long as those riffles are connected to, I think the perfect riffle is not like 6 miles long. The perfect riffle is short, so that fish can get up there in the riffles, but then they can drop back into some deeper water. That to me is the perfect habitat for them. And it's the same thing with the New River. The biggest thing with the New River is you're going to be dealing with some dinosaur-sized fish. The New River is like, the Susquehanna is a mile wide and a foot deep. The New River at normal flow is a mile deep and a foot wide. It's a more narrow river than the Susquehanna, but it's a lot deeper. It's a lot older. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're going to be fishing the Shenandoah, also, or the New River. And also cell service. Cell service, guys, does not exist. So if you're taking a vacation down there, just keep that in mind. Luckily, you know, I'm blessed. I bought Starlink before I lost my job last year, and I still have it. So like for the Shenandoah, I could just fire that thing up. So make sure people know where you are if you're going to be doing a float on that part of the river. If you want something cool to do, you can actually, there we go. So there's actually a boat ramp right here, Crater Lake boat ramp. It's pretty cool. So you can actually go up here and you can fish, I would say right about here, depending on what's going on with the water. You can go right about there, but you have this dumping in of water here. So you can actually have pretty good fishing right at the boat ramp right here. And then the biggest thing is just access. You can go to Riverview boat ramp down here, but the boat ramps get farther and fewer between as you go down towards West Virginia, which I know down is up is down. That's just kind of how it is. But that is the New River fishing report. Yay. All right. The Upper James. I'm not going to, I know where the Upper James is. Bug. All right, so the Upper James, have you guys know, origins is at Lake Muma up there in Appalachia, and then it breaks into, let me get up here. I just gotta follow the river because it's easier than trying to memorize all these towns. If I was professional, why don't I just go to Mooney? There it is. There it is. Cool. There we go. So Jackson River. Pull that down. So you got the Jackson River here, and that drops into here. This is the cow paddock. I think there, Potts Creek. There we go. Potts Creek, and then you got the Jackson River here. They merge, and that forms kind of the headwaters of the James. Biggest thing about the Jackson River, places like that, the water is going to be insanely colder compared to the rest of the river. That's why you have trout fishing there for so long out of the year. What's fascinating about the James, and I need to get more people on just talking about the history and understand it, is there are a bunch of dams. There are, just like you have on the Susquehanna. And these were used for more or less as like locks. And so if you want better smallmouth fishing, you really are going to be targeting from Lynchburg up. Lynchburg up is going to be generically the better smallmouth fishing if you want to actually go hit it there. Getting back into the old fishing report, this is where, again, it's a lot harder to kind of get information on this and the new river. These are like, it's so crazy because the James is the biggest river in Virginia, but there's like damn near no information on the non-tidal portion of the James. But the upper James remains low. As always, smallmouth bass continue to feed, being more successful, often longer casts, natural presentations. It's the same stuff. I know. When I do this report, it's article. It's like if any river's down, it's like it's generically the same stuff that you're going to be doing. The Buckman gauge, again, last week was at 2.64 feet. And I think Matthew's in the chat. That's getting to maybe where the jet boat's going to have some problems. I know, like at 1 foot, it's just you can't run the damn thing. We need rain. We need consistent rain. We can't have this just downpour where it just blows out the river and then it just goes right back down. When that happens, the water doesn't stay in the system. You need a light, steady freaking rain. If you get that, the river will go up consistently, and we won't have kind of this issue with it. All right, let me generate a new one for boom. All right, generating a new one for the James River real quick. Hold your thoughts here because I'm trying to keep this information up to date. What time is it? I got that episode. When is that episode launching? I think that episode's launching at, I think today's episode's launching at 11:30 is when I have it. Let me flip that over on my old thing there. Perfect. All right, that's good to go. Sweet. All right, let me see if it got cooking. All right, yeah. All right, so we have boom. All right, updated gauge for the James River right now at Buckman, Virginia. We have 2.35 feet. 2.35 feet discharge gauge. Let's see. Yep, so as you can tell right there, it's going down. So we had back on Friday, we had 2.64. Now we have 2.35. So that water is slowly going down, which is that's good. That's really, really good to know that we are having that lower water. And then again, like that's a normal thing. And so when you're fishing that lowering water, those side creeks on river systems, they will play. That will get just enough water into it where those fish will push over into those because they're chasing bait. That, again, guys, like understand, like that's what they're doing. They're chasing bait. And when that water starts pulling out, you just have to check some of those areas. Double check those areas to see if they started to pull out, and then they're going to go back to the main river areas is generally what they're going to be doing. Let me pull this up here real quick. Boom. All right. Here is Buckman on the James River. So if you guys want to know where Buckman's is, it is just above Lynchburg. So you got Big Island right here. You got the Apple Orchard Falls trailhead right through here, and then you got Buckman's right here, and then you have you got Looney Creek. So again, this is something like if I was fishing here, you see all these little creeks that come off. You want to kind of check the the water temperature for the best you can. There's just going to be times a year where those creeks are going to get on fire, and you just got to check them. If you have 80-degree water, let's go extreme for emphasis. If you have 100-degree water in the main river and it's 80 degrees in the creeks, those creeks are going to play. Go check out the creeks, if that makes sense. Hey, Bruce. Good morning, my man. Good morning. So that's that with Dave Run. I mean, all these creeks, you got Dave Run through here. Where's that other creek I saw? Oh, Dave Run. You got Looney Creek here as well. Same thing. Go check all these creeks. The other thing you got to be worried about with the James River, Upper James, is you get a lot of these either historic bridges that have a ton of crap next to them, so you got to be careful, or you get a lot of these tiny dams. And these dams were really used to help create navigable water to float stuff down them. There is a dam somewhere. You got low-hanging bridge here at Breed Bottom that you have to be worried about. And then let's get on down here to, where is that other bridge? Where is it? Oh, it's at, where is Lynchburg? There it is. There's the cow pasture. Where's the cow pasture? There it is. I think it's the cow pasture. Oh, Maury. All right, then we got the Maury River here. Perfect. All right, the next thing. So, Maury River. Maury River is a tiny little feeder of the James. This comes in below the natural bridge near Glasgow. And if you go all the way up here, this place can absolutely be deadly. This is kind of, think of it like the Conococheague or the Shenandoah kind of feeding the Upper Potomac, kind of getting a vibe for that when it comes to flow rate. This is another place where if the flow rate is up over 2, you can get a boat up in there. I think 2.5, 3 feet would be better. 3 feet, of course, would be great. But you can get a boat up in there to kind of get there. Again, it's very, very hard to get access to this bad boy. But if you can float it, summertime, it's absolutely deadly. But the problem is, it's just access. Access is extremely hard for the Murray. This is where if you have an inflatable kayak or you're going to do a canoe trip, you can actually have a lot of success, or wade fishing when it gets down insanely low. But the Maury is a fascinating little how do you call it, like a hidden gem, honestly. And as you can tell through here, it goes all the way up into Mechanicsville, Lexington, and 81. And this is basically a creek. Like some parts of it are a little bit bigger than others, but it's tiny. It's like the South Fork of the Shenandoah, maybe a little bit smaller width-wise than the Shenandoah, but it's a neat little place that the smallmouth will push up to. So you just got to kind of keep that in mind. Fredericksburg, bound for lunch with my daughter for her birthday. Well, happy birthday to your daughter. Happy birthday to your daughter, Bruce. That's awesome. So anyway, that is the Murray part of the report. Let's pull this out here. And then that's Buckland to Springwood. As you get down there farther and farther down, you're going to have the conditions kind of flatten out on that bad boy a lot. Closer you get to Richmond, though, I want to say the worse the smallmouth fishing gets, because I think it's a little rude to say that about the poor smallmouth fishing. But basically, the closer you get to the James, the closer you get to Richmond, the less smallmouth habitat you get. It is still possible to catch smallmouth down there, but it's going to get flatter. It's going to get hotter, and the fishing is going to get a little bit harder for those brown ones. But again, Acton Creek right here, Allen's Creek is another really good place. Big Island down here near Gladstown. This is a fun little area, an example of when that flow rate goes up. This cut through at Smith Island would be banging. Once that flow rate gets up a little bit, that's a place where the bait is going to congregate, and that's a place that the smallmouth are going to congregate as well. Again, there just has to be enough water to make them go into those kind of areas. So always check out these islands during a higher water event. As the water goes down, you're going to be looking at kind of these places right through here. You got a bend in the river. You got this outside bend right here. This is going to be a great little juicy place here. And then also check about the sun. I talk about this all the time, shade patterns. You know, sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So wherever that shade is going to be constant, there's going to be fish that'll get tucked up in there. It is insane how shallow a smallmouth bass will get. And so taking a great bait that I used 2 years ago, here's some juice, a screw lock paddle tail swim bait. Get a screw lock EWG hook, a screw lock, no weight on the hook, and then get a 3-inch paddle tail or a smaller, and you can cast that thing onto the bank and then just pull it off, and it'll swim still. A paddle tail is heavy enough; it'll keep itself upright, especially with that EWG screw lock. There's no weight on it, so it's basically a topwater / a little bit subsurface bait. But you can basically skip that under trees. You could, and I caught fish in a tournament, I think it was 2 years ago, I threw the bait onto the ground, onto land, and I pulled it off. And within 2 cranks of the reel, one would just shark it out of nowhere. It's crazy how much those fish will ambush in that shallow water. So, definitely go give that a check. So, and that really is kind of the James River. The James River is absolutely massive. Biggest thing is you got to look for, like, again, here's a different little drop off right here that you can use for it. Just looking for places that you can actually get access to it. And then here we go. South Fork of the Shenandoah, Upper Potomac, Susquehanna continues to improve, particularly above Conowingo Dam throughout the Harrisonburg region. Virginia anglers should be excited about opportunities to fish the new river, James River. Finesse tactics are your friends. Really key on those ledges and drop-offs. And then here are the biggest resources that I used. If you want to, this is on the Works Cited page. What you do, go to Fish Magazine, and you can copy paste that in there. Green Tops Fishing Report, you can just copy paste that sucker in there and get all the information that you want with that. Yeah, that is kind of the fishing report that I have for all of the smallmouth rivers. So let's go to the Tidal Potomac. All right, because I promised you guys this, the Tidal Potomac. Here is the juice in the Tidal Potomac. There is now grass behind. There's a little bit of eelgrass behind on Conrad Island, and there is grass, a little bit of grass at the beach area of Aquia. Grass has just been nuked in Aquia Creek, which is not good. That is a canary in the coal moment. Really, these tournaments are being won on hardcover, and if you can find a little bit of grass. Potomac is a little bit better when it comes to grass, but that is a hell of a haul for people. Lily pads are playing now more so than ever, and finding hardcover. Docks are big. So one of the best places to fish docks right now is Dogue Creek. Dogue Creek right now, you can just tell there's a shit ton of docks. When the grass goes on the river, that's when docks and hardcover play. Dogue Creek has an absolutely metric shit ton of docks. As the water heats up and it gets super duper hot, the other thing that will start to play, if people can get there, are the backs of creeks. I'm talking way the hell in the back, getting as far back in these creeks as possible. So example is here in Piscataway, you can get all the way back up into this section of Piscataway with a boat or a kayak. You're going to be rewarded for it, especially when that tide changes and it starts pulling back out. And then back up here. And which creek is this? Oh, there we go. Accaton Creek. Same thing. And this is, I'm just using Poic as an example. So go back up all the way in there and that. And also just check out anywhere that has like a hump or anything that has grass on it. Like finding grass patches are absolutely imperative. And so I'm giving you the homework to go do in this piece here. Like I'm not telling you there's grass right here, go find it. But if you go around and you find something that could hold grass because it's shallow enough, but people wouldn't necessarily fish it, even if it's a clump the size of my head, it will have bass on it. This is the time when there's not a lot of grass on the river, hardcover becomes a thing, and any patches of grass you can find become just insatiable. The fish will be there. So go check out the backs of creeks, all the way into the backs of creeks, docks, hardcover you can find, and then search for grass. Search for grass. If you're my kayaking guy, that's important. You can go try Mattawoman. Piscataway is another place. Pohick, Aquia, Belmont, you're kind of limited. My bass boat guys, go discover some new water. Go check out Port Tobacco. Go check out Angemoyne. Go check out all the way up into Piscataway. There's a lot of hardcover. There's still fish up there. They're just located on more of that hardcover and really look towards a lowering tide. That's what's going to be absolutely key right now. Bait wise, when you're dealing with this, when you're dealing with these hardcover conditions, the shaky head and the drop shot are really playing extremely well. You can throw those chartreuse crankbaits if you want to. If you're in the backs of creeks, a swim jig is very deadly. In way into the backs of those creeks, it's absolutely insanely deadly. Actually, you can flip the pads, choose your own adventure there with your favorite punching bait. The shaky head and the drop shot is preposterously stupid at how good it is. If you have scope, you can get up into where when you get all this fresh water, they will swing off into the hard parts. So what I mean by that is if you look at this river here, you see how it has these bends? So you're going to have deeper water. You're going to have a bunch of crap that gets blown and sunk right through here. Like a lot of trash, stumps and stuff that just sink. So you can use scope, find some of that submerged stuff with your sonar, and you can absolutely kill it. Again, that's where those urchin baits, those minnow baits actually play a lot. You can also go, again, all the way up north into DC, and you can catch them as well, fishing, really just meat and potatoes type of fishing stuff as well with that. So that's the Potomac fishing report right now. It's being won in the backs of creeks. It's being won if you can find any grass, which is insanely hard right now. Which is fast, is like when it's tough because I've interviewed enough people that when the grass fishing is good, people don't care to say like, yeah, I was in Belmont Bay. There's on that big ass grass flat. No one cares. When the river sucks, it's different because if somebody finds a clump of grass, they protect it with their life. And they're like, yeah, I wasn't even fishing the Potomac River. Why would you ask that? That's kind of what happens. Now, I will say the one interesting thing about Aquia, there are Wednesday night tournaments that go out of Aquia Creek. Where is the boat ramp? Wait, that's Potomac Creek. Whoops, sorry, I just had a stroke. Sorry, guys. There it is. So you got the main bridge right here. Hopewell Springs, there are Wednesday night tournaments that go out of there. So this whole place gets dumped with a bunch of fish. So anywhere that you can find the grass, and as you can tell, I don't know when this map was updated. 2006. It's got to be recent, but you can tell, like, boom, there's grass right through here. But so this place gets restocked with fish. So if you're going to be fishing in Aquia Creek, the biggest thing is, even though the grass isn't there, it's going to be a lot harder to find them. This place on Wednesday nights gets stocked with fish. And because it gets stocked with fish, there's going to be fish there. Again, picture all the docks. Hit all the docks and all the hardcover you can. Chatterbait, spinnerbait, swim jig, all those meat and potatoes type of stuff. If you find grass, hit it with a stickworm. This is just meat and potatoes type of stuff that you can do there, and constantly move until you kind of find those areas. And once you find those areas, make a couple of pass through different tidal swings. But yeah, so that concludes our first ever Patreon fishing report for all the smallmouth rivers. So the next one that I am going to do at the end of next week, because I'll have a couple of fishing reports ready for you guys, will be the Tidal James River, Lake Anna. We'll be talking about Lake Anna because I already did that with McCluskey, but I'll gather my notes on Lake Anna, Smith Mountain Lake, Bugs Island, all those places. So that is going to be coming up here soon. So we'll be doing amalgamation of all the places like that. And of course, we'll do Briary Creek and places like that. But guys, yeah, thank you so much. This link will be available, and then I'll also re-upload it, just the video portion, so it's available for you guys on Patreon. So yeah, thank you so much, and please let me know anything you want me to adjust with this format going forward. I kind of like this because I can just riff. I can just have my notes from the main fishing report, and we can kind of just talk through how every place is fishing. Enjoy your day. At 11:30 today, at 11:30 on the channel, the Chesapeake Bay, the Upper Chesapeake Bay with Duke comes live. Go check that out. And if you haven't yet, please sign up for my fishing tournament. We only have like 22 people signed up right now, which is a little nerve-wracking because we were doing 60 and 70 people the last 4 or 5 tournaments, and we only have 20. And yeah, if we can't even get 50 people for this tournament, we got to really restructure how we do tournaments going forward, since it doesn't look like people really like them anymore. So, but we'll see. So we will see you guys next time. Give me your feedback, and we'll see you later. Bye.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia. Fishing Protect, located just outside Williamsburg, Virginia. LMD Enterprises, keeping your boat, truck, and equipment running at its absolute finest. Tactical Fishing Company, Kevin Flint at Flint Financial Planning. Steady, thoughtful guidance that meets you where you are and supports what comes next. And Max for Fishing.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.